Greetings, fam. Got another banger for you today. Let's get into it. You are living a lie from the moment that you were born and incarnated into this physical realm to the day that you cross over into the spiritual realm. Your whole world has been a scam. It's been a scam. Nothing is real here. Let's break it down. Okay? So you were born in your mother's womb. Okay? You get the word womb from a patriarchal society that defined women as being wounded, castrated, without a penis. So they named it wound as in WOUND. Okay? Just over time it transcended to WOMB. Okay? So you are created in your mother's womb, meaning some place that is not healed. And it's in the womb that you take on all your mother's past traumas, all her abuses, her fears, her depression, her hatred, her uncertainty, her abandonment issues, daddy issues, mommy issues. Everything is in the womb. Okay? And this is a generational thing as she received these traumas from her mother through her DNA, and the lineage of being hurt continues. Thus, you grow up in an environment that is comfortable with being in abandonment, with comfortable with being addiction, with comfortable with being abused, comfortable with being in a state of depression. This is home for you. Psychologically, as you grow up in this type of environment, when you are out the womb, you're going to seek another womb. You're going to seek another place where it's not benefit for you, does not benefit you, is not good for your own best interests. You will attract people who use you, abuse you, abandon you, hate you, make you depressed, all those things. That's the whole, you can take the person out the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out the person, because you are conditioned and programmed to live in a lower level frequency, and you are comfortable with that. That's why people get out of one abusive relationship and they jump back into another one, because this is their comfort level. And we have to take accountability for that. That's why the world is a scam, because you don't even know that you are co-creating this dysfunctional reality based on the traumas that were passed on to you, and also the traumas that were done to you. And it all starts in your mother's womb. Okay, so now everything is about fear-based. So we go through life fear-based, which means we are pessimistic, means that we don't want to be hurt. We avoid pain. Even if pain is good for us, we're going to avoid it at all costs, because we associate pain with those traumas that we experienced in our past. That's why we go to drugs. That's why we go to sex, gambling, porn, food, all these addictions, right? To escape the pain, because the pain is too painful to deal with in real time. So we want to escape the video games, the smoking weed, the getting high, because we are, what they call it, self-medicating ourselves, because the pain is too traumatic that we don't want to deal with it. And it all starts in your mother's womb. So you create a world that is very small and simplified. And you create a box in which you imprison yourself. And you take that prison with you wherever you go, no matter if you move to another state, no matter if you get a new job, get a new relationship. You take your prison with you. And creates this world that you are a co-creator in that is not real. You don't know what the real world is, because you're serving a life sentence on death row in your own prison that you created, co-created, and you don't even know about it. Okay? So we are the co-creators of our world. And that creation is based on fear. And as we know, fear is an illusion that feeds the ego, that creates a bigger monster for you. Okay? And then what happens is, when we are traumatized as children, we compartmentalize the trauma. Meaning, if I was taken advantage of as a youth, those experiences that I had, I put in a box and put it in the recesses of my mind, my brain, and there I lock it in, never to deal with that again. Because as the trauma is going in real time, I, as a defensive mechanism, being such a young, innocent child, overload where I can't deal with this emotionally, spiritually, physically. So I escape to the compartment that I built in the back of my mind where this is done. It's not to me. It's done to creation that I've created that represents me, but it's not me. Because if it was me, it'd be too much for me to handle. So I created a character of me, and I put, that's the trauma's being done to, and I compartmentalize it, meaning I lock it up in the back of my mind in its box, never to open again. And here I am 30 years later, 20 years later, 40 years later, 50, 60, 70 years later, never going back and opening that compartment and pulling out all the trauma, all the abuse, all the ugliness of what happened, because I locked it away and forgot about it. But because I did that, I stayed frozen in the time of that trauma. So if it happened to me at 8 years old, now I react as an 8-year-old whenever something reminds me of that trauma, because I never dealt with it, I never healed. And that's where you get the addiction from. Everyone's trying to escape instead of embracing the hurt, embracing the pain, and working through it so that we can forgive not only the person that did it, perpetuated on us, but to forgive ourselves so that we can finally love. We don't know how to love because we've been scammed all our life into thinking that we are living the best lives that we have, and we haven't even touched the surface of who we are and what we are capable of doing. Most people don't know what love really is, because to love you have to heal from these traumas. And the ego is too strong nowadays, as it's fed, bombarded with it, energy to feed our egos, that we never even realize we are not our egos. Our egos are in the driver's seat telling us that we are it and it is us, and never to heal again from the traumas that happened to us. Also, what we do is a theory called sunk cost fallacy. Okay, as adults, again, the world is a scam. Sunk cost fallacy means if you play the lottery, okay, and say you played thousands of dollars in the lottery and you're down to your last dollar, but you still play, not saying like, you know what, I invested too much in it, it's not gonna happen, let me walk away and at least I get to save this dollar. No. Sunk cost fallacy says bet that dollar, because that dollar can be the one that makes the $10,000 and you can finally come out on top. So you'll keep investing in something that logically is probably not going to happen again, and no one can tell you stop investing in it. And that's on a job that you think you're going to get a promotion that you never will. That's a relationship, abusive relationship, that you think this person is going to change and they never will. That's with gambling, any addiction that you have. I just need to take this hit just to lighten my load a little bit and then I'll be okay afterward. You keep investing in something that never will return the benefit that you invested in. But because all you have is time and investment history in that, you trick yourself into saying, I've gone too far with it, I guess I gotta keep going with it. And you keep digging yourself a deeper hole because of that. And a lot of us are sinking in this hole because we're investing in things that do not have our best interests. And because our ego tells us we can't walk away and say, you know what, I'll take the L, we keep investing in it, thinking one day that something magical will happen and we'll get the things that we want in life. This never happens. You are scamming yourself. The world is a scam. Another thing is called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. That's when we require an emotional attachment to something. Okay? We get an emotional attachment to something. And once you are emotionally attached in a unhealthy way, logic and reasoning goes out the window. Okay? Because once you're emotionally attached, you cannot think logically. You can't think reasonably. So that's the person that stays in the abusive relationship, but I love him or I love her and she can do better and she says she's going to change and he said he's sorry for hitting me again. You're too emotionally invested where you can't sit outside of yourself to see that you are in a bad place that's not going to ever change. But the attachment is stronger, emotional, is stronger than the rationale and the logic to look at something and say, I need to cut my losses now and move on. I've invested too much now and move on. But because you are emotionally attached, those become chains and you enslave yourself, not to a person who's real, because a person is showing you who they really are, but to an ideology, to an image, to a fantasy of what you want that person or thing to be. You are living a scam. The whole world is a scam. Another thing, when you look back in your childhood, you'll see that that teacher in the second grade said that I was smart. My uncle told me that I was a good football player. My aunt gave me the best gifts at Christmas. But your mother, who's a single mother because your father abandoned you, right? And she didn't really want you, right? So she's operating at a lower level of self-survival and lightweight blaming stuff on you because you remind her of your father, right? So you're not getting the love that you need at home. And that's one thing that we need to come to grips of as adults is that, I don't know what the percentage is, but more likely than not, we weren't planned by our parents to be here. We were a mistake. We were an inconvenience. We were something that got in the way of what they really wanted to do in life. So we grow up in a loveless environment in our house because our mother doesn't really love us. She learned to love us. She learned to deal with the things. But the underlying thing is she didn't really want you in the first place. And that's hard for a lot of people to come to grips with, right? Because your father is gone. And this is my personal experience. You know your father's gone. You know he doesn't love you. You know you can care less about you. He abandoned you before you even got here. So I can deal with that. So the only person I have now is my mother, who had to be with me or keep me. Not because she wanted to, because at that time, that was the responsible thing to do that was culturally accepted. You didn't abandon your children as women back then. So you get raised your whole life thinking that the only woman you can count on is your mother. But then you realize she didn't really want you. And that's not to throw shade on our mothers. It's just truth that we created these NPC players around us that we needed in order to deal with this traumatic environment that we found ourselves in. So if your mother doesn't love you, you have nothing else. So you create that. You create that teacher who just said that you were smart, and you make her the pillar in your childhood that got you through, right? She said, but she probably said that to everybody. But you put 2 on the 10 because you need her to be that fairy godmother that saw the best in you and that actually appreciated who you were and complimented you on that. Or that uncle who took you to a baseball game one time. You put him on a pedestal like he's the father figure that you've always wanted. So you create this image in your mind that your uncle loved you like a son. But he really didn't, because he had his own children to deal with. He had his own family. And he was being a good uncle, which is nothing wrong with that. But in your head, you created a fairy godfather because you needed that. You needed that. So if you look back in your childhood, you will see that you created these NPC players and you created them as stars in your realm, in your world. And you said that they did this and that they loved you and they believed in you and they thought that you were pretty or they thought that you were the best in the world, and it carried you through your childhood until you wake up one day and you realize your uncle probably wasn't all that what you said. Your aunt wasn't all that of what you said. Your favorite teacher was cool but wasn't what you thought it was. So now as you wake up and you grow in your consciousness, you start to see people for who they really are, including yourself. And you start to see that it was a scam all along because you needed that scam as a child. You needed to believe in Santa Claus and Easter Bunny and all these things just to get through. But as you become an adult, you realize, I don't need the illusion anymore. I need truth. And you start to see people in your past as who they really are. No knock on them, as you the one that created them as being larger than life. They were just being themselves because you needed them to be larger than life because you had no body, right? Another thing is we are all trained to be in a cult. In a cult, it's groupthink. You never go against the leader of the cult. I do it to my sons. I'm a big Raiders fan. I always say Oakland Raiders. I don't care where they go. They Oakland Raiders to me. I'm a big Laker fan. I'm a big Dodger fan. But guess what? Because my kids were surrounded by my fanaticism of these teams, they became fanatics. Now my sons are Dodger fans, they're Raider fans, they're Laker fans, because I created the occult and I brainwashed them into being that. If I was in the Army, more chances are that they would be in the Army. If I like the Celtics, they would like the Celtics, right? I created this. So I got my fandom from my grandmother, huge Dodger fan. I remember she had that little resistor radio like in 1970s and she would listen to the games and I'd be right there cheering her, right? And be in LA during showtime, Laker period, come on, man. And there's some reason I always was attracted to Oakland Raiders, right? Because there was a seed planted in me that I planted in my sons. So now you see how if you wore Air Jordans, guess what? Your sons are going to wear the new edition Air Jordans and so on and so on. Whatever you did and instilled in you that your children saw as, wow, he's really put that on a high priority in his list that he's going to wear Nike, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. They want to do it as well. So sometimes your thoughts, you're not thinking your thoughts are thinking you because someone programmed you to think that. And if I was living in Texas, I was living in New York, my whole thought process and what I prioritize is in my life would be totally different because we raise our children to be in a cult and you never go against the cult leader, right? Raider fans don't get along with Pittsburgh Steelers fans or Dallas Cowboy fans. And if you do, they kick you out of the cult. We are all living this cult type culture, and this goes for religion as well. Jehovah Witness, cult, sorry to say it. Evangelicals, cult. Pentecostal, cult. Baptist, cult. Catholic, cult. They're all cults. You're living a lie. You're living a scam. You have been brainwashed and conditioned and programmed to believe who you think you are and how the world is that surrounds you. Democrats are a cult. Republicans are a cult. You either with us, cult, or you're an against us, cult. You don't even know who you are. The world is a scam.